Welcome to this week's edition of Taiwan Talk. I'm Hope Go. The Forward Alliance is one of Taiwan's best-known think tanks, but its most high-profile work involves holding weekly crisis response workshops with active duty firefighters and paramedics so that citizens can provide a community emergency response in the event of a man-made or natural emergency. The organization is the brainchild of its director, Enoch, who has made it his mission to raise awareness for the need to be better prepared for threats that lie ahead. For this work, he was named one of Time Magazine's 100 Next for 2022, a title given to emerging leaders seen to be shaping the future and defining the next generation of leadership. Wu spoke to us about what inspired him to give up a financially rewarding career in exchange for life as a budding politician and then in a nonprofit.
I was in Hong Kong from 2003 to 2013. That was my first job in finance. For a fresh grad, it was a job that let me see how the world worked, and to see Hong Kong's change soon after the handover. In 2013 is when I came back to Taiwan. I saw in Hong Kong where capital was moving, where talent was moving, and it was decidedly moving away from Taiwan. And as a Taiwanese, I thought that was just so unfortunate because we had so many things going for us. We have all the right ingredients to be much better than when we were. And I wanted to come back and see, what one more person could do to help make a difference. And public service, coming from my family background, was always something that, if you had the chance, this is something you should dive in head first doing. And in 2013, I came back to Taiwan and started looking at all the missing pieces in making this place better, making this place safer. As I surveyed the entire field of public policy, what I saw was folks were interested in education, as they should. Folks were interested in the economy, as they should. But there was one area where folks needed to pay more attention, and it really is, one of Taiwan's biggest challenge of this generation, and it's defense, it's national security. It wasn't because I grew up as a military fan. It's not because I grew up dreaming to become a soldier. But this was an area where we needed more people, more outside voices, more fresh perspectives to take part in. It's part of democracy that citizens need to understand all types of policy, whether it's education, healthcare, or security. And that's a fight that we're still in right now because, understandably, every new democracy takes time to mature, to transition. But we're short on time. We're facing an adversary that is acting with a tremendous sense of urgency. And we should all be alarmed, and we should all be better prepared. But that doesn't mean we need to be running around panicking that disaster might strike tomorrow. But we just need to raise our level of personal preparedness, our level of community preparedness, and our resilience as a country. But the government's job, our job as advocates, is to recognize and to be clear-eyed about what's going on around the world. And also to put forward a solution, right? So what do we do? And how can we continue living our lives, going about our business, continue to improve Taiwan in face of this threat, right? And we have to be better prepared. How do we do that? Well, the government has its job. The military has its work cut out for it. But also civil society, the rest of us, have got to step up as well. Taiwan has close to 24 million people, only 1% of which are the military, the police, and firefighters. So what about the other 99% of us, right? We absolutely have a role because one day, if we were to face a major crisis, whether it's the next 7.0 earthquake or a worst-case military invasion, we know we can't rely on just the 1% to do everything for us. We shouldn't, and we cannot. And so the work we're doing at Forward Alliance is to provide the training for citizens, to provide crisis response training, so communities have the confidence and the ability, coupled with the will, to protect their communities and to protect their loved ones. It means everything from trauma first aid to search and rescue, to communication, to managing shelters, to managing the security of your neighborhood, right? All these things pieced together form a more resilient community, and all these things pieced together means that we can devote our most professional resources, our limited resources, to the areas that are most in need. It's the idea that civil society will have to work with the government. There has to be a public and private partnership to make Taiwan more resilient.
One of the tools of repression that the old government used in China and bleeding into early Taiwan was weaponizing civil society. There is still a trauma. How do you get past that early trauma that the Taiwanese have of banding together, potentially working against each other?
I take a slightly different perspective. When I think back to the martial law days growing up, when my dad started taking me with him to attend street protests, I think about Taiwan's progress as a society, and every step along the way, everything we accomplished was a result of citizens taking actions, citizens getting involved together, taking the street to demand a vote, taking to the street to demand a more liberal society, legalizing same-sex marriage, saying no to a dangerous trade pact with China. Everything we accomplished to date happened not because of the government, but because of citizens deciding to care, deciding to take action, deciding that this is our country and public servants work for us. And so that's what I see in Taiwan's modern history, and I think that really is the source of Taiwan's strength.
Is there a compelling childhood memory that you have that pointed you in this direction?
Around the dinner table growing up, all I heard, all my sister heard, were stories of what my parents' cohorts were doing throughout the 80s and 90s to help democratize Taiwan. We heard debates and conversations about where we could do better as a society, what else needed to be changed. And much more than these dinner conversations, it's actually being on site, being on the ground. My first demonstration happened when I was 9 or 10. Back then, there was a protest against the military's involvement in the executive branch. Not long after, the government pushed through, without much public consultation, the plan to build a fourth nuclear plant. And again, there I saw uncles and aunties take to the streets. I saw them collecting signatures from citizens, from people on the street, one by one, petitioning for a referendum, right? The referendum for a nuclear plant. The point wasn't nuclear energy on its own is good or bad. The point was that a decision so big, so consequential to our future, had to be decided by the people. Probably in 7th grade, going again from street corner to street corner, actually helping to collect these signatures and being turned away by adults who said, even in the early 90s, adults who said, it's dangerous to sign these things. Taiwan's democratization took place so quickly. The final stage happened so fast, but obviously, we had waves and waves of democratic movement, from even during the Japanese colonial era, to the post-World War era, to finally the 党外时期, 70s and 80s, and finally the regime gave in. All that change happened from, within a 10-year span, right? The formation of parties other than the Kuomintang, right, to the first direct presidential election. And now we're, 3 or 4 transitions later, here we are, facing a different challenge, a much more formidable challenge, and that is the existence of this nation, right, this young democracy. And what we see on a daily basis is that, citizens are tuned in. Citizens are aware that there is this threat. What people didn't know was what we as individuals could do to help make a difference. And what we're providing here, I think, is one way that we can all take part in first, keeping our loved ones safe, right? and then beyond that, supporting our communities and supporting our young nation.
You were listening to Enoch Wu, Director of the Forward Alliance. And that does it for this edition of Taiwan Talk. Do join us again next time. Thank you for tuning in.